Hey everyone, welcome back to another recap podcast from SNXweave, where we give quick weekly recaps of news and important updates from the previous week from the Spartan Council and core contributors, as well as discuss what the Grants Council and ambassadors are up to, so let's get started. First, let's discuss the SNX migration plan. The V2X portion has been audited and released on L1, and the V3 portion was audited as well. This is currently in the dry run deployment and testing phase, and the next step is to release the V3 upgrade on L1. At this point, the migration framework will be fully functional, and users can begin voluntarily migrating, which will be accessible via a one-click user interface. At some later governance-determined date, there will be a forced migration to V3. ML Sudo asked if there have been any forced migrations in the past, and Caleb responded saying there may have been one smaller migration due to a bug in the early loan products. He went on to add that in this case, the forced migration would be more of an emergency measure for accounts with lost keys, etc. Cav added that once the voluntary migration phase is reached, all of the incentives will be directing users towards that very simple one-click migration process. Now let's get into how this will work. Upon migration, the legacy market contract will issue a V3 account with the user's migrated debt shares and collateral, which will include their locked vesting entries, similar to L1 to L2 debt migration on V2X. Accounts below the V3 liquidation ratio would be liquidated during the migrations and socialized amongst V3 accounts. Duck asked if this meant that anyone who had not yet migrated to V3 would be ineligible to receive liquidation rewards. Meb clarified that yes, unless you have already migrated to V3, you will not receive those rewards, although currently, no users are at risk of being liquidated during migration, so this shouldn't be a huge concern. Users with V2X SUSD will also be able to burn and mint V3 SUSD, and L1 and L2 debt pools on V3 are independent, so they will not impact V2X debt oracle reporting. V2X wrappers, loans, and spot synths will also remain on V2 for now, and there will be a separate migration plan for these products later. There was also a SIP presentation last week, so let's briefly review it. The SIP was 2058 to list Axelar token on Synthetics perps. This SIP was presented by Jason from Axelar, who explained that this is one of the leading interoperability solutions known for being fully decentralized. AXL was recently listed on Binance Spot and futures markets and has regularly generated $100 million in daily volume. It was also listed on DYDX in the last couple of weeks and is in the process of being listed on Hyperliquid. The proposal was written for listing on Optimism, but Bert and Duck recommended listing on V3 on Base. In Ambassador Council updates, the team released their most recent Ambassador Governance update on Twitter. The tweet has a link to Optimism's governance calendar, as well as results from the most recent proposal votes where the ambassadors performed their OP Token House duties. They also shared resources for how to apply for an Optimism grant. The current deadline for submission is today, March 27th at 7 p.m. GMT. And on the note of Optimism grants, the results from round 1 of cycle 19 can be found in the update. Some notable winners from the Synthetics ecosystem include Synthetics, which was awarded a growth grant to boost SUSD liquidity and support trading competitions, as well as a mission request for best-in-class perps decks. This grant will support the building of an order book perps decks on Synthetics perps, featuring an advanced order book, multiple order types, an open source relayer, and the infrastructure to enforce these trading rules. Thales was also awarded a growth grant, and a builder's grant was awarded for ERC 7412 tooling and education. There's even more content in the governance tweet, so be sure to check it out on Twitter. The ambassadors also released notes from their Spartan space with Pith. Some highlights included a discussion of Pith Network as an oracle provider with high-frequency, low-latency oracles, a more technical discussion of their product, the chains they serve, and their data sources, their governance model, which is inspired by Synthetics with a focus on community involvement and long-term sustainability, and finally, a discussion about Synthetics perps and how Pith's low-latency oracles helped drive over $50 billion in trading volume. And that's it for today's updates. Be sure to check out our weekly recap blog post, share this podcast link, and let us know what you think and what you'd like to hear more about from SNXweave. Thanks for listening.